G'day. Welcome into today's stream. Sorry I've been absent for the last few days. I've been busy, but we're back. Seeing we were on that topic of Holden a few days ago, I thought I might as well do this one as well. Holden v Ford. This is a two-part special, Holden v Ford. We're starting off with the legendary stuff, the rivalry itself, and some of the history. So, no more feeding cards to be in than Brock's goddamn Toronto. Let's get into it. Holden v Ford, the history that shaped Australia with some of the most legendary people and legendary cars, like the Toronto that you're currently seeing. This thing is a fucking legend. Holden v Ford started back up in... Hold on. It started back up in the 1960s. Motorsport began on Bathurst. The endurance race, Ford introduced the Falcon, Holden introduced the Monaro. Sadly, this version of Forza does not have that. If you want to get familiar and look at the ones that started it in particular, Horizon 4, Horizon 5, and Horizon 3 are the games for that. They have more. And I'm pretty sure also Motorsport does as well, if you want to take a look. If you want to take a look at the vehicles behind the rivalry. Now, with that one being said, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, when Holden v Ford was at its peak, it was a thing that all of us Aussies can agree on. It was the defining era of the country. You had Team Blue, Team Ford, Team Red, Team Holden. Well, obviously, as you can tell by the HTT cars and all that, and most of the Holdens always having that familiarized red around them. And Holden and Ford kept doubling down to one-up each other every single year. We're not talking about bad parts, we're not talking about the absolute shitboxes this time around. We're talking about the good and the damn right epic plus legendary moments, especially Bathurst. Overall at Bathurst, I'm coming from what I've watched, because I did watch a fair bit of it, but early 2000s, that brown Winker. Lounsey originally started off with Rocky for a while Winkup started off in Ford. Our two biggest men, other than Peter Brock himself, Holden, you had Dick Johnson and all of those other guys, Ford, Alan Moffat, as another big name for Ford, all main. The names were huge, names kept changing. But the main ones everyone knows is Jamie Whincup, Craig Lowndes, Alan Moffat, Dick Johnson, Peter Brock. The rivalry shaped their careers as well. Always getting better cars getting faster, cars getting more ruthless, more aggressive. the car that Brocky was mostly famous for driving, because we're talking about Brocky here, was definitely the Tiranas. He made the Tiranas that one standout overkill car that still lives in us. It's still an iconic car to this fucking day. While most of the Commodores was Wingcup and Lowndes. Yeah, Wingcup and Lowndes has been a Ford as well, but mostly been an Holden. They shaped that whole Commodore versus Falcon rivalry era. Well, they didn't shape it. Rocky was in there as well, but it was mostly them two forming. Mark Scaife is another one. A really, really top bloke as well. I have met a lot of these names that I have said. Sadly, I never got a chance to meet Peter Brock. I was close to, but sadly, the whole accident happened before I had a chance to. But the two that I'm mostly familiar with is Wingcup and Lowndes. I've met them several occasions now. I have been to several V8 supercar races, had a chat with them, had a laugh with them. So, the men behind the badge, I'm going to call it the men behind the driving, it's more appropriate, are some of the most elite drivers, to put it in a way. They loved it. The whole V4, they would happily sit there and talk about it as well. Even as a mechanic, being in the midst of fucking Holden V4, it tends to show its colours on who's really good, and who is really bad. But yet again, that's for another topic. Well, it's for the topic, but it's for another screen. Actually, no, because we've had some really good ones come in the shop when I used to be at that shop that I worked at with my mate. We had a few V8 Commodores come in. Owners were absolutely awesome, but the pinnacle of the cake was still even down there in Taz. We had Wingcup and Lowndes come in a few times, because they needed some more tyres. I wasn't the tyre person at the time. I mostly dealt with under the engine, so I managed to have a bit of a yarn with them about the old days, the Holden V4 days. They said it was the most fucking fun days of their lives. Australia, I know we wish we could have Holden V4 one time. The true send-off. My bad, ladies and gentlemen. My mic decided to say screw you, but the true send-off, the Holden V4, the one final race, the one proper race, where we can get the Commodores and Falcons in one last time. But not just that. Honestly, I know it's a fire shot. I would honestly kill to see all the old girls and new girls all on the one track. A Holden Ford from each generation. That would be an interesting lineup, but not as a full-blood race, because we know the newer ones would, well, absolutely fight before with the old girls. But more what I'm thinking is a memorial. You know, a fucking one last lap, one last race would be, not proper race, but one last round of each track. That would have been the best way to send them off, in my opinion. Not through silence, and then all of a sudden the factories were shut. That was terrible. We can all agree on that. Holden did not die on how it was around. It died too quietly. Not even one last hurrah swing. That one last hurrah would have been in. Yeah, we had the last hurrah we still do on the roads. But bring back the old girls and all that, not just as a parade. God no, but a lot of them weren't even in Holdens and Fords in the parade. the last Holden Ford send-off. That's what hit a lot of people. It's like, this is the final send-off. No, not. That final race, that season was a draw. At the end of the day, well, I managed to run by maybe 1 or 2 points, but the cars didn't outperform each other. They really didn't. Instead of a proper hoorah final balls to the fucking tooth nail and grind send-off, we got that. One race Holden won, one race Ford. At the end of the day, they were neck and neck with the amount of wins. That's the sad part. Nobody won the rivalry at the end. Because of that one move, to this day, it's still highly debated, hey, they really should have done this. They should have done one more race. That one more lineup. The old days of rivalry, I'm pretty sure Holden won the 60s, Ford won the 70s. No, Holden definitely won the fucking 70s. They had Robbie, especially mid-70s. 80s? Yeah, there was some shitboxes from Ford there, and man, not really a shitbox. We had our fucking Falcons and all those 80s. That was pretty neck and neck. Like, throughout most of the rivalry, it was pretty neck and neck. So 7 in that last race, it would have been good to actually see a definitive winner. But sadly, we're never going to see that. I know, I'm driving like an absolute shithole. Sorry, I've only recently just woke up. I don't know what's going on with my energy levels today. I also know you guys are waiting for a roast sesh. Don't worry, I'll make it back up to you at the end of this stream. I'm not doing Holden v Ford roast, no. I'll hit it with someone else. So let's just talk it out a little bit. Let's sit down and have a bit of a chat. Holden v Ford. What are some of your memories of Holden v Ford? Because some of mine is one half of the family yelling at the other half saying, no, Ford sucks, no, Holden sucks, my Ford will kick the ass of your Holden, you're in your biggest fucking dreams. Honestly, it didn't just shape up families. It didn't just shape families, it shaped Australia. We had a lot of Australia going, no, Holden's better, no Ford, better, no Holden, better. We had the odd people out that had different card tastes that said at the end of the day they get 1 out of 1 feed, but they were shut down really, really quick. Which was always funny to hear when the Holden and Ford actually teamed up, the Holden and Ford guys teamed up, or some Subaru guy or some Nissan guy. Shut up, shut up, this is not the country for that. Go to that country if you actually want to make fucking men's with it. This is Holden v Ford country. Where either Holden is better or Ford is better. Me, I was downright neutral because I knew Holden and Ford were both really good companies. I also knew, and still know to this day, one of them was actually true blue Australian. I have to give that one to Holden. In the 1880s, 1890s, Holden was formed as a saddle company before going vehicles. Well, you know guys. There were 4 people think, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. Holden was, like most companies, was actually named after the founder, Mr. Holden. But it wasn't until insert Ben Chifley came along, Prime Minister Ben Chifley, said, why not we turn this into a car manufacturer? Turned out they were quite good at it. Of course, they did try in the 20s. 20s, but the 20s was rebadged Chevy days. We don't talk about it. A lot of people did not know about it, but it's true. It was the rebadged Chevy era, man. It wasn't until the 50s we actually probably started making our own cars. Holden and Ford in the 50s weren't so down each other's throat. Ford never originally... Back then, Ford did not see Holden as competition, they just saw him as another car. It wasn't until the 60s where Holden said, screw yous, I'm actually going to take a shot at it. And they did not do a shit shot. That Monaro GTS in the 60s was a fucking maniac. It made Ford go, oh shit, we actually might want to watch out for these Holdens. Which was funny. This little company, Holden, with not too much years of experience, around about like 5, maybe 10 years, decided to put on the red gloves and uppercut Ford when they weren't expecting. And that's what started the Holden v Ford rivalry. Coming from a lot of people who I've spoken to about the early days, and pretty much what the internet's also told me. Sadly, because I wasn't alive around then, I couldn't exactly tell you tooth and pretty on how it started. But I can definitely tell you in the 2000s, every time that Ford pumped out a good Falcon, Holden decided to amp up and go, okay, you have your bosses, you have your barracks. We're just gonna have our Ecotech and fucking LS engines. Which, that's really what deciphered the rivalry in the V8 supercars. It was the bosses and V8 Barras versus the fucking goddamn V8s from Holden. Most of the time, it was LSs, stuff like that, like the LS1, LS2, LS3s, LS8s. Especially when you start getting into the performance section of FPV versus HSV. Man, did they take shots at each other with their FPVs versus HSVs. That's still living on, even yet Holden is disintegrated and Ford's still kicking around to this very day. But Holden and Ford, I grew up in it. Most Aussies grew up in it. That's still around now. Not all know it. We've all seen it. We've all experienced it. You've always had that mate that you joked around with. You may have been a Holden person. You had a mate that was a Ford guy. You just had your jokes and your laughs going, no, your Ford is absolutely atrocious. My Holden will kick your ass, and vice versa around. We can all relate to that one. Having the fun, having the old days where you're like, nah. It's the Holden that's better than a Ford. Nah, mate, Ford's better than Holden. That's me simplifying it, because some of those arguments, yeah, they're for my nighttime stream, some of them arguments. So I'm simplifying it, keeping it friendly. Guys, if you're wondering if you'd want to hear me do roasts and savagery, that usually happens around about 8:30 my time, 8:30, 9 o'clock my time. But yeah, Holden v Ford, Australia's biggest rivalry, literally the definition of Australia. When we lost Holden, be honest guys, when we lost Holden, that shit was devastating when we saw that fucking ZB. We looked at that and said, is this what our nameplate belongs to now? Is this what our country stands for to the Germans? The Germans didn't understand exactly what Holden represented and meant. Yet again, I'll talk a bit more about the bad, the ugly, and the damn right get the hell out of my garage later on, because both sides had that. But also, the both sides had the good and the damn right legendary. Golden Piranhas, especially the A9Xs, the SLR 5000, the XA Falcons, the XB Falcons, the XD Falcons. All some of the most legendary fucking cars. The Commodores, definitely the Commodores. As for what, since the 80s, 90s, Commodore v Falcon, Commodore v Falcon, Commodore v fucking Falcon. It used to be Falcon v others, but then it ended up becoming a Commodore v Falcon. That's what most people know it for, is Commodore v fucking Falcon. And let's be bloody honest, Commodore v Falcon era was a really fun era. Hell, before anyone says that my last one was just me taking a shit out of Holden, I actually will be owning. I will be buying myself a HSV Gen F. If I'm not a Series 1, I'll be going for the Series 2 Gen F GCS. That's only because we actually do have a 2017 set in the yard, so I want to make it two 2017s. And as for Ford, yeah, I'm gonna buy a Ford. I've got my eyes on a fucking 2019 Mustang that was only made for Australia by Australia. So, an Aussie built Mustang. I've always said it. I always want a Holden, I always want a Ford, or if I have to have more than a Holden and more than a Ford, I will. Let's just put that into conception. As a Holden and Ford person, I was never really part of that argument. I was always twisted and going. At the end of the day, they're both good cars. At the end of the day, we make them both. But yeah, of course, like everyone like myself, I was always humbled and shut up. You're wondering why I'm sucking at driving? Yeah, traction control and all that is still turned off because I was recently driven. But anyway, guys, leave it down in the comments. I'm going to be piecing out on this stream. I know she's one of my more shorter ones. A Holden v Ford, the rivalry that everyone never wanted to die, but sadly died. This is what shaped Australia, this is what built Australia, this is what made a lot of us Aussies and how we are. Back in the mid-heat Aussies, which one were you? Team Holden or were you Team Ford? Put it down in the comments below. And nowadays, if you're still watching the races and all that, what are you? Team Mustang or Team Camaro? So I'm Team neither. It doesn't hit right. It doesn't feel right to me. So, with that one, guys, I will catch you on the flip in the next one.